Welcome, everyone, and thank you for attending our Voices from Afghanistan press conference. I just want to mention in the beginning that we will have 5 minutes in the end to answer the reporters' questions. Please leave your questions in the chat if you have any, and we will be happy to answer yours. I am Basma Alawi, the National Campaign Manager for We Are All America. We Are All America is a national campaign housed at the National Partnership for New Americans. We Are All America works to uphold and strengthen our nation's commitment to welcome and protect those seeking freedom, safety, and refuge in the United States. We organize people across religious and cultural differences to build inclusive communities where we all belong. In addition to NPNA, We Are All America's national partners includes Alianza Americas, Church World Service, Human Rights First, Refugee Congress, the Refugee Advocacy Lab, Refugee Council USA, and Welcoming America. We are gathered here virtually today to express our support for a robust humanitarian response from the United States and our commitment to assist Afghans in danger and to implore the administration to expand opportunities for Afghans to seek refuge in the United States. Since the president announced the US withdrawal from Afghanistan, experts have warned that a humanitarian crisis would be imminent. On August 15, Taliban forces took control of Kabul, stirring up fear in everyone in Afghanistan and abroad, but more specifically, touching on the warrior of vulnerable population in Afghanistan, including women, girls, LGBTQ, and people with disabilities, and religious and minorities groups. By this point, many of us have seen the images of desperate Afghans and the airfield, Afghan women disappearing from the streets of Kabul and people scrambling to hide their identity in fear of what the Taliban can do. Then on August 16, the president addressed the public regarding the withdrawal, stating that he won't shrink from his share of responsibility for how the US engage in Afghanistan. Taking responsibility means ensuring that there continues to be robust protection for vulnerable population in Afghanistan, while providing clear pathways to protection for all Afghans seeking refuge from violence. Such pathways include, but are not limited to, evacuating Afghans allies to US territories for processing until all 18,000 SIV applicants and their loved ones have been evacuated. Today, we're going to start the press conference with Representative Anna Escamani, Florida State Representative, District 47, to speak about her work and how she is engaging her community in Florida to respond to the Afghan situation.
Thank you so much, Basma, for the invitation. Thank you to We Are All America and to all of our partners that are addressing this humanitarian crisis taking place in Afghanistan with the US withdrawal. My name is Anna Escamani. I'm proud to serve District 47 in the Florida State Legislature, and I am the daughter of working class immigrants. My parents came from 2 different parts of Iran, but met in Orlando, and I have family in Iran and know all too well the feeling of when you are scared and feeling helpless and not sure what to do to help your family in crisis who live abroad, who live overseas, who face so many injustices, some caused by your own country, creating a scenario where we have a moral obligation to do what's right and to support the Afghan people at this moment. Yesterday, I received my first email from an attorney representing a Afghan interpreter who is trying to fulfill the processing of their SIV to get to Florida. Of course, as a State House representative, these are cases that are often referred to our federal officials, but I'm here to make sure that every elected official understands that we play a role not only in pushing for a robust humanitarian response to our Afghan allies, but to also ensure that it's not just about getting our refugees to this country. It's also about the settlement process and ensuring that we support our refugees, not just in their travel to this country and the processing of that, but also to find the best schools for their families, to find jobs, to find a place to call home. Right now, it is Afghans, attorneys, humanitarians, advocates, and veterans who are all asking for help. We know from just the photos and images coming from Afghanistan that there is a great deal of fear, and rightly so. And as I said earlier, we have a moral responsibility as a nation to welcome the tired, the poor, the huddled masses yearning to breathe free, as it reads on our Statue of Liberty. Now, in this case, the United States not only played a role in this crisis, but we have built relationships with Afghans who are now even more vulnerable to persecution or worse, death. We must not only welcome refugees, but ensure the resettlement long-term. As I mentioned already, what that can look like for our country. We also cannot be naive to the fact that the history in this country is one that has a huge backlash towards people who look like me and people who look like our Afghan refugees. And that does suggest that we have a big role to play in ensuring their safety as they escape persecution to come to the United States, to call our country home. So we have to move fast in welcoming refugees, making the processing as fast as possible to save lives, not just for those that have SIVs, but also their families. As Basma said, we're talking about tens of thousands of people, not just those directly employed or formally employed with the US government or helping our troops abroad, but also their family members as well. And whatever that takes to ensure they can start a new and dignified life, we must be committed to long-term. Now, the United States has a long history in being a global leader in the resettlement of refugees, but unfortunately, under the former administration, those efforts were drastically reduced. And I have joined efforts with different immigrant rights and refugee organizations and pushing Governor DeSantis in the past to be more proactive in pushing for an enlarged refugee program. But unfortunately, in 2017, for the first time ever in modern history, the United States settled fewer refugees than the rest of the world. And so we have a lot of rebuilding to do, but there is no time to do that slowly. We have to ensure that we're looking at all options on the table and expediting this process to help support as many Afghan refugees as possible the shortest amount of time. There are alternative pathways to welcoming our Afghans to this country. And I know that the creation of the Priority 2 category for Afghans within the US Refugee Admissions Program is designed to help Afghans and their immediate families who may be at risk due to their US affiliation, but don't qualify for the Special Immigrant Visa, also known as SIV, because they didn't work directly with the US government or didn't hold a government job long enough. So the Priority 2 visa should assist Afghans in getting out of Afghanistan, but we also know that even the challenge of getting out of Afghanistan is very real right now, and oftentimes the financial support to do that is not available. So we are asking the Biden administration and members of Congress to step up to ensure that whatever costs are associated with getting folks out of Afghanistan, even if it is to another country before they come to the United States or a military base, that must be prioritized. And we have to ensure that the process moves as fast as possible, as this is a crisis and there's no way to sugarcoat it. With that said, accepting Afghan refugees is truly the only way for America's promises to mean anything. We must look back at these last 20 years and reflect on our past actions. We also must uphold our promises to support the Afghan people, and our country could become a haven if we choose to do so. And now is the time to start. And with that, I will pass the virtual mic back to Basma, but very honored to be part of this conversation, to do whatever I can to help.
Thank you so much, Representative Anna. And today also we have impacted people who are American Afghans who live in the United States, but they are still in fear to share their identity because they are still having their loved ones and family members live in Afghanistan, and they are going under the threat. So next, I will invite Lina, a former refugee who lives in the United States now, to share her story and to talk about the threat her family going through now.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Basma, and thank you, Representative Anna. Thank you, everyone, for being here and hearing the stories. My name is Lina. I'm a former refugee from Afghanistan. I fled Afghanistan in the 1990s when Taliban first took over. I have lived under the Taliban regime as a teenage girl and it was a nightmare that I'm reliving now. Even though I'm not physically present there, I'm scared for my family. My family members feel trapped and are afraid to leave their homes despite Taliban's assurance that it's safe for them to go back to work and to school or normal life. And their fear is due to their affiliation with the foreign governments, including the United States, being strong advocates for women and minorities, or simply not accepting Taliban's oppressive behavior as they have implemented in other provinces. Personally, for myself, my fiance has a pending visa application, and it has been pending for almost 2 years. Unfortunately, now he's stuck. He's a musician, and his brother is a well-known singer, which music and singing and being in the media are one of the things that are against, the Taliban's belief. So his life is in grave danger. I have other family members that are trying to flee, but they face many challenges, including the risk in getting through the security checkpoints at the airport. There are no commercial flights, and the fact that some of them don't have passports or financial resources to get out of there. Some of my family members cannot even access their money if they have financial resources at the banks because the banks are closed. Everyone is refusing to go back to work and the ATM machines are empty. It's so important for us that we need to evacuate those families that are fleeing persecution, or if they have a pending visa application, we need to get them to safety. We have to provide a solution and a pathway for those who are trying to flee the country by making sure that the airways stay open and people are not harmed trying to get to the airport. There has been reports of Taliban beating those that are trying to flee. The borders are closed for everyone, so people are really scared. They're scared for their lives and they don't know what to do and who to turn to. So thank you so much for being here and for hearing this. And I'm gonna go ahead and pass it back to Basma. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lina, for your courage and for sharing your story. And next we have Aisha Rahmat, a former SIV from Afghanistan, who will talk about how her co-workers from the SIV community who are applying to come to the US, going through a lot and under the threat in Afghanistan still. Aisha.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and supporting and standing by Afghanistan people. My name is Aisha. I'm from Afghanistan. I came to the United States 2019. And I'm a daughter of a father that he was working for U.S. government and earlier 2000, and my mother also worked for them, but both of them don't have this chance to apply for SIV or such other programs that they can help themselves and help us. So, but on 2016, luckily, I can apply for the SIV program, and being a hope for my rest of family that if I apply, if I came to United States, then I can open the doors for my family and they can come to United States. Mr. Biden said on his speech a few days ago that a lot of people don't want to come to United States or they don't want to apply for the SIV program. My dad was one of them that was looking for such a great program and apply for this kind of program, but he couldn't get a chance and he passed on 2016 before I applied for this program. And I have a lots of co-workers still in Afghanistan that their cases is pending for SIV, and most of them get denied. The people that they are generators, they are cleaners, they are cooks, they are already, their visa has, their application already been denied, and they were losing their hopes. And I told them, like, don't worry, we try to find our best, and maybe you have to appeal for that. They appeal many times for their SIV cases. And when I applied for the SIV, my life was danger. It was hard for me to go to school. It was hard for me to go to university. But that time there wasn't Taliban. It was Taliban, but not that much, like everywhere. You cannot see everywhere Taliban. And you feel free to go to school, at least go to colleges, or at least we can go by our own options to, if we want to go outside. But right now, Taliban has a rule that women cannot go out without men. And in my case, I lost my father on 2016 and my siblings too. And I don't have a brother. And my mom is sick at home since they came. So they cannot go out. There's been a week for my family. They couldn't go outside to buy the grocery because we don't have man at home. And if they saw anyone that going outside without man, they're gonna beat them. Even the situation, everyone can see that on media, that how it's like scary at the airport. And even going outside, buying groceries, they are showing in Taliban. They are taking girls from their houses underage. I heard the story of one of mother that she was hopeless, that Taliban came to her house and took their daughter. And she thought she couldn't do anything. Her daughter was 14 years old. Her husband died too. And she moved to Kabul. Now they are in Kabul. Everyone thought that Kabul is a safe place for them. But right now, Kabul is also really scary and dangerous. People were falling from the airport, from the airplane. They were hoping that we can just they just saw both sides dead, so they are choosing one side dead. So I want everyone that stand by for Afghani people. When US military need us, we were stand for them. We were there for them. We helped them. Me, my mother, my father helped them. My mother was escort for a lady. She helped her. Now we need her. My mom needs her. Everyone, we need them now. If my country was safe, I was there with my family. I don't have anyone here. And my family is still there. And I'm really scared that what's gonna happen to them. And thank you so much, guys, for being here. Now I'm passing back to Basma. Thank you.
Thank you, Aisha. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And I hope soon you will be able to see your mother. And as we heard, not that just the people who worked with the American troops are under the danger, but even random people and women and girls. Next, I will turn it to another former refugee who will share more about her story and the struggle and how her family now under the danger. Shamal?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for supporting and helping Afghani people. And I'm speaking out in how much this tragic situation impacted not only family, but my family back home, but myself as well. I'm feeling of hopelessness, and I have been confused and lack of sleep for the past 3 weeks and not knowing how to help my family and where they're begging and crying for help to survive. And I have family in different parts of Afghanistan, include Kabul, Herat, many cities and different cities. And there are some of them risking their life to escape, and people are separating from each other, from their family, losing their children and their family members when they escape. And many include my family member, they are trapped in their home and they cannot go anywhere, because if they decide to escape, they have to pass through Taliban's checkpoints, and Taliban going door to door looking for a young girl as old as 9 years. When they find them and take them and force them to marry the Taliban, and people pass the Taliban checkpoints to how they should to save their young girl and daughter from the Taliban to escape. And the Taliban had promised to respect minorities, but 3 days ago, they buried several people alive in Daikandi for being Hazara, just as minority. And the US and NATO allies must threaten the Taliban, not simply asking them to respect, to let the people flee the country and let the people to escape with their family, with their children, especially the young girl. And President Biden said the other day that they offer CIV visa for the people, but they don't want to come. But that is not really correct. And my brother, as well as many other people who work for American government, who work for military, and they are right now trapped under the Taliban control, and they asking their former boss, American boss, to get a recommendation letter, and they ignored them. They never answered their email to give them letter, but without recommendation letter, it is impossible to get CIV visa. The American government is part of this chaos. American cannot abandon us now. They have to come with the solution to get the people at risk out and provide access to safety and open the door to escape the country. And both US and Canada and many other NATO allies announced a special immigration program for Afghani people, but they do not explain how it will be processed and how those impacted people have to access to this program and how and where they have to apply for this for the asylum. And that is making the people even more confused, because people heard that and then people just run to the airport to get asylum, but there is nothing. They hung on the airplane, they died, and they are missing their children. I mean, I think they have to come up with the solution, especially United States. And again, thank you so much. I want to pass to Basma.
Thank you so much for your voice and for your story. Now we will pass it to Reverend Noel Anderson with Church World Service.
Great, yeah. So I'm the director of grassroots organizing for Church World Service, and I also serve with my denomination, the United Church of Christ, in our immigrants' rights program. What is happening right now in Afghanistan is truly tragic, as we've all seen. You've heard the voices today of the US Afghan community and what they're experiencing and the reality on the ground that their families can't escape. Faith communities across traditions right now are praying for everyone in Afghanistan, and especially for those in harm's way. Church World Service is a refugee resettlement organization and part of Refugee Council USA. You may know the majority of refugee resettlement agencies are actually faith-based. The refugee program was strategically decimated under this last administration, but in the current moment, we see just how critical the refugee program is as one of the only lifelines for Afghan allies and families right now. The administration, this administration, the Biden administration needs to do much better at building back the refugee program at a more effective pace so that we're ready for moments like this, which clearly has not been done in the way that it should. After the last decade, we welcomed so many Afghan and Iraqi people under a special immigrant visa. They're part of our communities. They've spoken out about what people, how that role as an ally has created risks for their families. We cannot turn our backs on those in life-threatening circumstances now. We have a moral obligation to evacuate as many people as possible to safe locations in the US or a US territory such as Guam. We must expedite and expand the Afghan refugee and SIV processing immediately. Although nearly 1,200 Afghans have arrived at Fort Lee, Virginia, and have begun their resettlement process, that figure is just over 1% of the total number of allies who need to be evacuated. Even if evacuations flights continue at their current pace, it would take until March 2023 to evacuate eligible Afghans out of the country. That is unacceptable. We have to do better. It is vital that all of our Afghan allies, 18,000 plus, about 53,000 family members and more, be flown to US territory and have their immigration applications expeditiously completed now. The US has done this before. We can do it now. It is equally imperative that the administration expands and expedites the life-saving refugee protections for Afghans fleeing violence and persecution, such as priority 2 referrals, as well as priority 1 and 2 direct access for the programs of groups of special humanitarian concern with both in-country and third country processing. So these pathways should include, at minimum, family members of U.S. government employees not covered by the SIV program, and other at-risk populations such as journalists, religious and ethnic minorities, humanitarian workers, but also, as mentioned today, the janitors, the cooks. Finally, here in the U.S., refugee resettlement agencies are in need of support through donations and volunteers as more Afghan families arrive in our communities. One of the most urgent needs is temporary housing, which has become very difficult. We are looking for individuals or congregations to become community sponsors for families. You can learn more about how to do that at cwsglobal.org. So let us continue to lift up our prayers for all people that are facing persecution in Afghanistan, allies, women, children, minorities, disabled people, queer people, and many more. We pray for peace, we pray for justice, we pray that no one be left behind, but all will find family unification, sanctuary, and safe haven. Pass it back to you, Basma.
Amen. Amen. I think it's not better than what Reverend Noel shared. We need all to step together and support our brothers and sisters in Afghan. We can do better than that. Definitely, we have done it before. The refugee program is a life-saving program. The SIV program is a life-saving program. I myself was saved through the SIV program. And I understand the feeling of being betrayed by the American troop who me and my family were almost threatened to be killed just because we were supporting these troops. This hit me home, and I want everyone to step in. If I want to start with local and elected officials and legislators, I want you today to stand in solidarity with the Afghan community. Send a letter, hold the Biden administration accountable by sending a letter to the White House. Invest in local resources, strengthen your state community response to welcome Afghan refugees and special immigrant visa holders, as Representative Anna was sharing. Issue public statements, demonstrate that your state and localities welcome Afghan refugees and allies by sharing a press statement. Also, if you are a member of Congress, hold the administration accountable to, one, evacuate all Afghan allies and their loved ones and displaced Afghans who have been forced from their home. We also ask the President Biden to ensure that there continues to be a robust protection for vulnerable population in Afghanistan, including women, girls, LGBTQ, and people with disabilities and religious minorities group. We want everyone who is now displaced because of the United States foreign policy to be saved. In addition, we ask for Biden to keep the airports in Kabul open for military, charter, and commercial air. We want to make sure all our community in Afghan saved before we really regret that time. And for people who's asking question in the chat, asking for resources, please reach out to us. Reverend Noel just share. Check the Church World Service work, check RCUSA organizational letter. Everyone can do something. And if you need more information, please reach out to us. We are All America, and we will share with you the resources. We need you today to act, because everyone who's on the American land can do something at this point. I want to thank everyone who attended today, and I want to give the last couple of minutes if we have any question from reporter to be answered. And if we don't have any questions, please reach out to us. Our email is already shared in the chat. You can reach all the speakers who shared their identity today via emails, but the ones who kept their identity safe, if you want to speak to them, we will make sure their stories are shared. We see that 2 participants raised their hand. Could they ask the question in the chat, or how we want to do it? I cannot see the hands.
Hello, Jack. You've been invited to speak.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Jack with Religion News Service. Sorry, I was frantically trying to type it. I know some of the speakers have already addressed this, but just to put a finer point on that, The President Biden himself, as well as Biden administration officials yesterday, repeated this claim that, laying the blame for part of the reason there wasn't a mass evacuation of vulnerable Afghans from Afghanistan ahead of, the complete takeover of the Taliban, saying that it was because, SIVs didn't take advantage of the opportunity to leave. And there's been a lot of pushback to that. And I'm curious, the collective response from this group to that claim by the Biden administration.
I don't know if any of the speakers want to respond to that.
I'm happy to
Lina,
respond.
Representative Anna and then Lina.
Thank you, Basma. We've been hearing for weeks, and you already heard one of our directly impacted people share the story of how long they've waited as applicants. And candidly, even when it comes to just generic travel in this country, my office was getting emails about people facing passport delays. So clearly there's been a huge backlog of just processing, whether it's American passports or travel visas. And I'll tell you, as an Iranian American, as a state lawmaker, I work very closely with students who are international students that are going to our state universities, and they're facing obstacles in getting their visas processed. So I think the claim that folks were not seizing the opportunity is not accurate, and that instead there is a serious case of bureaucracy here that is making it very difficult to process people's claims. Folks have been waiting a long time who've already applied, let alone folks who are now in a state of crisis because they have to get out immediately due to the, not just the US withdrawal, but obviously the speed of the Taliban, which was not shared publicly.
Thank you, Representative Anna. And I know Lina want to answer as well. We will be able to take one more question. So Lina, after Lina, we will take one more question.
Thank you. Yes, I completely agree. There are families that have applied for, and they have been waiting for this process as long as 5 years. And that statement is completely not true. It's false. And there are the process itself is really complicated. You have to have recommendation letters, and those that are recommending you, they have to provide their information, and they have to spend the time and respond to the inquiries that are coming from the US Embassy. So the claim that SIVs did not want to seize this opportunity and come here is completely false.
Thank you so much. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to add to that quickly. That is my own family. My brother worked with the PRT, and we are sent several times email to his American boss, because it has to be American. It is not has to be Afghani or anyone else, but we couldn't get even a respond in one email in one time. I mean, I think it's probably President Biden informed incorrectly and do not aware of that issues and problem.
Thank you so much, Emil. And I know there is one more question that we're going to be able to take for Aisha. Marcelo from Hispanic TV asking about what news you are hearing from your family, and are you able to communicate still with them? What are they saying about the situation?
Yes, I'm still communicating with my family and hearing with my family. The thing that they are telling me that they are really worried about the neighborhood, because there's Taliban in my neighborhood and they cannot sleep at nighttime. The only thing that they are really worried of, they are just taking one by one and like parting, that I am sleeping, you have to take care of the rest of family because I don't have a man at home. And they've been waiting for someone, if a neighbor came to ask them that if you need something or someone can help them buying grocery. And the Taliban is, we can see the Taliban outside of our houses. And yeah, I'm communicating with my family.
Thank you so much, Aisha. So Aisha, as she explained earlier, her mom's sick and she cannot go out to seek medical treatment because she needs to have a man walking with her. If she don't have a man walking with her, Taliban will beat her. So that's why she cannot seek any medical treatment. She cannot go out of her house because of that. Thank you so much again for everyone who shared. We do have many resources for community members, Congress members, legislators that they can share and hold the administration accountable to do the right things. I thank everyone who came today, and we hopefully we will have more of these voices heard, and we will have hopefully the President Biden listen to these stories and really act really soon. Thank you so much and have a great day.